Thank you to the people who are supporting me on Ko-fi. You guys are keeping me alive. The Demon Slayer Corps had many refuges scattered around the countryside of Japan. They were small inns, taverns, and occasionally impressive mansions, all surrounded by wisteria. Among these locations was a simple village. A person from the outside would find this place creepy. An entire village with just empty houses, only one really being lived in. The unnatural feeling of this place was only made worse by the wisteria's otherworldly background. This was Kaiko Village. It had been the center of a great battle against Musan Kibutsuji, one of the few victories against the Demon King the Slayers could report. However, it was hard fought as well, and the state of the village was telling. From all the 127 civilians who lived here, had perished all but one family. The family of the village's shrine maiden, who had hidden within the shrine. After the event, the stubborn family refused to leave the village, despite its gruesome state. It was them who cleaned it up, ordered the wisteria saplings from the corpse, and buried the fallen whose bodies were still intact enough to be buried. Now with a protective cone of wisteria, and 2 constantly deployed kakoshi to help maintain the repaired ghost town, Kaiko Village had become a legendary Demon Slayer accommodation. It was night and raining quite heavily, when a Demon Slayer cart burst through the wisteria wall towards the only lit house in the village, where your family resided. Your father, hearing the commotion, immediately left to investigate. He soon returned with a heavily injured man hanging from his shoulder. Immediately cleaned up the place. The man was wearing a Demon Slayer uniform, had blonde hair and yellow eyes. Behind him 2 others entered. A man with a pig mask who was just barely being held back by a redhead. "I apologize for my companion," he said, a little desperate. Seemed like the masked one was furious for whatever reason. Your father shouted your name and immediately you turned around, assisting him in tending to the blonde's wounds. He had deep lacerations, but nothing Demon Slayers could shake off. It seemed like injuries that would game-end a regular person were just shrugged off by the Slayers. Though this one was a little bit different, he was squealing like a pig to the slaughter. Seems like at least one Slayer must have normal reactions. Carefully you assisted your father, bringing him fresh water, new clean nails and thread, until all wounds on the Demon Slayer were closed and bandaged up.
"What a sorry bugger,"
muttered your father.
"Does he always scream like that?"
Normally Demon Slayers were too proud or too stoic to scream.
"You butchered me!"
cried the blonde.
"Daughter, bring him to his room. I'll show the others the houses."
"Yes, father." Carefully and slowly you helped the blonde Slayer to stand. Bring him to his room was your father's way of saying that this man's life would be in your hands. So that was reassuring. But it also meant that your father was quite positive he'd make it. He'd never let you take care of someone he'd think would die. You helped the Slayer into an empty room of your house, where the intensive care patients were usually housed. However, luckily, outside of the 3 Slayers, only 2 others were currently lodging in the empty houses around the village, so it was very private right now. Gently you set the blonde down on the bed. He was breathing heavily through his mouth.
"Thank you,"
he cried.
You're an angel.
You blushed a little.
Of course, dear Slayer. I'll make sure your recovery will be swift and pleasant.
You pulled over a chair and took hold of his hand.
Mind telling me who you are?
The Slayer sniffled pathetically.
Zenitzu, Zenitsu Agatsuma. I'm a low-rank demon slayer. I use thunder breathing and I travel with my companions, Tanjiro and Inosuke, and slay demons.
He sounded very sad, afraid, and crying, and God, it was so cute for some reason.
Though it seemed like he might not be too well suited for this job. And who are you?
He asked you carefully.
You closed your eyes patiently before telling him your name, followed by your story. I am the little sister of the village's shrine maiden. She is currently residing at the shrine and won't return until tomorrow.
I see.
Zenitsu made himself sound as weak as possible.
Interestingly enough, this humanized him to you. The other Slayers were just so boring. They could be on the brink of death, yet still sound so strong and uncaring. He was weak. Like you. Like anyone else. It made you smile. And gently caress his face with your other hand. His lips quivered.
Our village is here to serve demon slayers. Give comfort. Protection. A slice of heaven, if you will.
Honestly, it is sometimes hard to say goodbye to them.
Though my father is quite harsh when it comes to slackers,
so it is quite rare we have to actually put effort into removing lazy slayers. Zenitsu gulped, seeing himself already as a lazy slayer.
But don't worry, with those wounds, you won't be sent out anytime soon.
You happily nodded at him,
and I'll be happy to take care of you.
The man's eyes widened.
Really?
This was heaven. He could just lie in bed and he had a pretty girl take care of him. If he felt able to, he'd right now reach up and hug you. But the exhaustion and fear of the stitches breaking, well, that outweighed his need for human warmth right now.
How often do you have visitors? Mostly weary travelers and slayers who find our unorthodox village.
Well, it's mostly weary travelers and slayers who find our unorthodox village.
I see. He blushed a little.
And why is your village like this? Your face turned from a motherly smile to a serious grimace, making him gulp. It pained you to recall the memories of that day. The Black Day, as your sister had so eloquently put it. You started by explaining the strange new arrival, who later turned out to be Muzan Gibutsuji. He had sold himself to the village as a man who can be trusted. But in truth, the coward was hiding here, from the Slayer Call. As despite his unholy power, the man was desperately afraid of death, so any risk had to be eliminated. Through sheer chance, a Slayer arrived at the village one day, which then kick-started everything. Muzan converted villagers left and right, declaring the village his own after the Demon Slayer had been consumed. Friends became monsters. It was like your village, your home, had become a human meat farm. Ironically, it was all thanks to a demon that this entire thing had been uncovered by the Slayer core and could then be ended. The demon was ravenous, even for a low rank like it. and your mother of all people sacrificed herself to it. One day, or more, one night, she ran. For an entire night, chased by the thing clutching a wooden box with a message. And after the thing had devoured her in a single gulp, the wooden box had been preserved within the demon. Thanks to the mad dash your mother did, she managed to get the thing into a way shrine, off the beaten path, where it housed from there on out. One day it was slain, the wooden box falling into the hands of the Demon Slayer core. Inside, the message. Of course, by the time the core arrived, Muzan himself had left the village, too afraid your mother managed to share the secret. And after a long siege, the remainder of your family were the last ones left. Zenitsu's face had turned pale, tears streaming down his eyes as you finished the tale. His hand let go of yours as he reached up to you, grabbing your shoulder.
That was the saddest, most disturbing story I've ever heard.
He screamed so loud it made your ears ring. Well, that just ruined the mood. It's alright, you chuckled, as you patted his head. I was too young. What I just told you was what my father told me. I was a toddler. All I remember from that time is that I was bound and shoved into a shed with the other children, and that one by one we became fewer and fewer. When the siege happened, I didn't even witness anything as well. My father, well, during the battle had locked the shed to avoid anyone from entering, and then he hid in the shrine with my sister and my grandmother and my grandfather. You smiled at Zenitsu. Even though I don't remember, I do remember the fear I felt as a toddler. That's enough to know what he told me is the truth. And so I take care of any slayer who requires help. Like you. It's the least I can do. You chuckled again, this time a little amused. Besides, I don't think you will enjoy your stay too much here anyways. What do you mean? Well, those wounds need cleaning, and that's gonna be bloody and quite painful, but... You leaned a little bit forward and gently kissed his forehead. Do you think you can be a brave boy for me and not make a fuss? You blinked. Out of all the reactions you expected, it wasn't a scared squeal like that. He wanted to say something and you sighed. Yes, Zenitsu. Can I get another one and then I'll consider it? You blinked. What a greedy little pervert, you thought. And yet, you smiled, a little smug at him, before slowly leaning forward, gently touching his mouth with your lips. Your skin barely touching, the mere ghost of a kiss. Your hot breath cascaded over his face, and once you leaned back, he lied there, eyes rolled back but clearly breathing. You sighed, pleased. I shall return to you later. Don't go away. I'll just bring something to drink. Yeah. He was completely blown away. How adorable. You left the Slayer alone. Upon sliding the door closed, you bumped into your father.
Is the Slayer still alive?
You smiled softly. Yes, father. Your old man grunted and left you. Meanwhile, you turned around, looking at the paper wall. I hope he survives. He's kinda cute.